things that are interesting up here. So I wanted to, Kevin, you're with?
I'm with Oracle Marketing Cloud. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be here.
And Gordon, you're with?
With Salesforce.com. Hi, everyone.
And I'm with Adobe.
So I want you to know that this is not, these are all the guys from the Marketing Cloud Wars here, but this is not an open carry panel, so there's not going to be any fisticuffs, I guess. But what we, I guess, want to know is, the main thing of this war is to try to win the hearts and minds of the CMOs, the digitally oriented CMOs. And that has to do with the idea that somehow 1 + 1 + 1, all of these things that you guys are bringing together, equals 5. And I tried to go down and actually research how many billions you guys have spent on all these acquisitions, and I had to stop at 10. But I know it's higher than that. If Micros is included, I'm not sure if that's going to be included, but that's a major one as well. So why don't you guys take this, and why are you guys buying all these things?
Well, yeah, go ahead. So I think the whole idea is that there's an opportunity to connect to customers in entirely new ways, in ways that have been never before possible for marketers. And so I think that is what the opportunity is sort of in front of all of us, and that's one of the reasons why you see these companies being acquisitive in this space. But I think it's really a recognition of that the opportunity for marketers to think about orchestrating these journeys across different channels, and not just marketing messages, but thinking about orchestrating those journeys that may be service interactions or sales interactions, but really thinking broadly about all those consumer touch points. Bringing all that portfolio together is really important, especially for Salesforce.
And you guys are taking different journeys because everybody is filling in different areas at different times.
But it's all about connecting to the customer at the right place at the right time.
Right, so the marketing suite at this point is, I would say, incomplete, right? At this point? Or is everybody's complete?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the quips that we use is that the CMO has taken there's an app for that approach. Everybody's using 20 different apps, 20 different databases, 20 different content repositories, reconciling 20 different sets of campaign reporting and analytics and data. And if I want to achieve this consistent customer experience across this broad set of fragmented, mostly digital channels, in a cohesive way, I can't do it with 20 databases, 20 apps, 20 UIs, etc. So a big part of this is just going to be how do we actually help the CMOs that's chartered with this responsibility inside the organization now do this in a simple, cost-effective, actual, manageable way. Because if I try to do it the way I'm doing it right now, all those billions of dollars are going to be spent syncing disparate systems and disparate databases and managing teams and apps across, and not focus on the customer, which we're going to, hopefully, we're going to help liberate the marketer from and let them put all their calories towards the customer effort rather than managing all these disparate systems the way they're doing it right now. Right. So hence the suite is a necessity. We think it has to happen, otherwise the CMO will not be able to achieve his or her goals.
And what's interesting within that is the consumers are still sort of leading us, right? Like if you think back 7 or 8 years ago, there weren't 1 billion people on Facebook and 500,000 people on Twitter. And now we're starting to see those same communities go to places like Line or the other group messaging apps. And so the consumers are going to be showing us where they're going to be having those conversations. And the brand, we need to give the brands the tools to participate in those conversations.
Right. And most of the things that you're actually using as part of the companies that you're buying and integrating weren't in existence 6 or 7 years ago, right? So I want to actually bring Adobe into this. And Adobe started this whole concept, I think, of the Marketing Cloud, which I think Larry Ellison at one point said is complete gibberish or something to that effect.
You can't hold me responsible for that.
We can't hold them responsible for past comments. just in our own lives, we can't do that. So you guys really were, I would have said if I had $1 million to bet that Adobe would not have been the purchaser of Omniture. I was pretty shocked with that back in 2009. But they started off in this vision, and it was really the case of kind of an old line marketing-oriented company taking on a new direction. And talk a little bit about that and how that journey's gone.
Yeah, well, I think that Adobe has been kind of transforming industry. So I think there's a heritage in that. So I wouldn't characterize it as an old line software, given what we've done with the Creative Cloud and the forward thinking on that side of the business.
But you were at 2-year release cycles, right, for that?
Yeah, but that's changed too. It transformed a lot as well alongside the marketing side of the business. But I think the idea was, how do you connect really what the marketer's building in terms of creative into the experiences that they can manage?
And you guys are leading on creative.
Absolutely. We are huge in that market. The Creative Cloud is a massive business for us. But we wanted to connect that back into how marketers are actually measuring those experiences, delivering on those experiences, and delivering them consistently.
So because you were the first, are you a leader?
We certainly believe we're the leader out there. We think we have a massive opportunity ahead of us. We haven't solved, I think, what the opportunity looks like, but we're certainly starting to put the pieces together to give marketers that tool set to deliver consistent experiences. And I think what we are seeing is that I think consumers are requiring marketers to be consistent across devices, across environments that they're in. Multi-channel. That's a real challenge. And I think if you spend time on trying to integrate these disparate systems without a unified data asset to go out and take advantage of, it's really hard. And I think that's what marketers are challenging Adobe and all the cloud companies to solve for them. Whoever ends up being the leader or not, there's a huge opportunity to go out there and tackle that.
So Kevin, who's the leader? Are they the leader?
Boy, you see where Marc's going with this? Marc, to be honest with you, I think it really depends. There's so many different approaches, right? Some companies are approaching this from a specific channel, like mobile or social. Some people, like ourselves, are approaching it kind of from a core strength of data, right? And enterprise readiness and IT and going up into applications. Some people are coming at it from a specific CRM point solution. So I'm not sure that anybody could really claim a definitive definition of leadership and then put their flag on it.
So maybe it's leadership that's coming from the various angles that you guys came from. So Salesforce came from the CRM side, the sales CRM side, and did that really, really well. And then had to put things around it. I think the App Exchange is one of the things which is a stroke of brilliance.
Well, I think all three companies certainly have a franchise that is very, very relevant to the CMO and to marketers. But I think I would flip it all the way back around and say, at the end of the day, the customer doesn't really care necessarily what technology the brand is deploying to build that relationship. They just want a consistent experience, and they want the brand to know them, whether that is, personalized email, a personalized web experience.
I gotta get this straight. You're saying you're pitching to brand people, but they don't really care about the brand that they're buying from? You're saying?
No, I'm saying the customer.
The customer. The customer.
The marketer does.
Yeah,
the customer doesn't
Right.
necessarily.
The customer, the buyer of a BMW doesn't necessarily think about what tools BMW is using to market to them.
Right.
So I'm trying to just put it around and think about the customer perspective, right, within all of this, as opposed to the vendor's perspective.
So you're selling to the CMO, and the CMO is usually very forward-thinking at this point. Gartner came out with that thing, which everybody quotes all over the place, that the CMO is going to spend more than the CIO by, I don't know what year it is. Anybody know the year? 2016, 2017, whatever it's going to be. Do you think that's going to be the case? And if so, how does that change the CMO's role and how he buys from Salesforce, which is CRM oriented towards B2B tradition?
I think it's absolutely going to be a partnership. I think it's a convenient foil to say it's a zero-sum game and there's going to be a CMO emerging as a winner over a CIO. But the fact of the matter is that there needs to be a partnership to bring all that technology to market rapidly, make all the different systems talk to one another, make sure that you've got the right data to make the right decisions at the right time, to execute and orchestrate all this across channels. So I don't think it's one or the other necessarily.
Yeah, the challenge, if I'm going to bring all these channels together, I'm going to manage a transformation to achieve consistent customer experience across all the channels. Okay, that's not trivial. I'm going to achieve the transformation to go from analog to digital inside my company, whether I'm B2B or B2C, that's not trivial. I'm going to finally conquer the one consolidated view of the customer data challenge. That's not trivial. I've got to think content a whole new way because I'm going to deliver the right message to the right person, the right channel at the right time with individualized content. That's millions of pieces of content, and I've had the agency deliver 200 last quarter, right? So I've got to rethink content. The execution gaps that businesses are facing right now that are kind of landing in the CMO's lap are massive, right? Their data, their content, their cross-channel, their technology. Quite frankly, in their own organizations, they're siloed, right? They've got VPs of community and ads and social and mobile and online and CRM and loyalty, and right, there's 20 different VPs of marketing.
Yeah.
So you look at KPIs, you look at organizational challenges, cultural challenges, everything is an execution gap to get to this promised land, right, that we're all talking about. So it's going to take a village, right? And the CMO, I think, has got the cap, right? He or she owns and has the spotlight on. They got the seat at the table they wanted. Now they're being held accountable for the results. But they're going to have to do it with legal, with the CIO, right, with everybody, because we're talking about company transformation. It just so happens that the CMO is leading it, but we're talking about business transformation in every sense of the word.
And how does the CMO make the decision between the three of you?
I think it's made in partnership with the CIO, and honestly, I think that partnership is getting more robust. Even if you look at our heritage in creative, one of the large connections between the Creative Cloud and the Marketing Cloud is digital asset management. How do I take the assets that his creative teams have built and make them available to the marketer so that they can deploy them and turn them into personalized content, right? Turn them into targeted experiences to optimize landing pages. All of that richness that a marketer wants to take advantage of. A lot of times that connection point is built around and managed by a CIO. How am I building a scalable digital asset management system to facilitate that connection? So we're seeing more and more of that partnership in that decision making. So the marketer is building a requirement set that the CIO is participating actively in.
So this, go ahead.
I think the question is an interesting one. One other way in which I think the market's going to evolve, it'd be interesting to see, is these suites, right? You look at the companies up here, have primarily been built through acquisition and marketing, right, / ad tech. So who is going to get the absolute best world-class leading companies, in each one of the categories, whether it's data management, whether it's content, whether it's social, marketing automation, etc. There is who is going to be able to and be willing to acquire the absolute best assets on the planet to do the various pieces. And then far more importantly, the vendors like ourselves are going to be held accountable at a whole different level to actual integration, at the data level, at the workflow level, the content, right, the UI, etc. Because if all we do is buy new shiny toys and say, look at the one I just bought, right? And we don't actually deliver real timely integration value that delivers ease, simplicity, management, etc. to the customers, then it's still going to be the same old stuff. So I predict that you're going to see not only the ability to bring on world-class assets, but the ability to actually integrate them into value for the customer is where the wheat is going to separate from the chaff in the particular marketplace that we're playing in.
And the CIO traditionally reported into the CFO, right? And so now is the CIO going to report into the CMO? No honest answer.
Not sure about that.
Because that's sort of a titanic shift as well, right?
That
Our organization,
right.
the CFO is.
Well, I mean, the table has shifted. I mean, in recent years, cloud and platform as a service have enabled the CIO to deliver innovation more rapidly into an enterprise.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about shifting from a very sort of, we want to squeeze as much budget and people out of things as maybe you would have done reporting into a financial or a CFO structure, maybe a little bit different than working for a CMO, and it's about innovation and how quickly you can bring things to market.
The data that they're having to ingest is completely different.
And the tools have gotten better for them to be able to deliver and bring innovation to bear much more quickly as part of that as well.
Yeah, I think, from our standpoint, one of the things we see is just pace, right?
Yeah.
A marketing department or a marketer doesn't want to submit a document to the CIO to make a change to a creative asset on the front page of their site. They need to be able to change that rapidly, make rapid decisions, and have that scale out. And I think that's where the partnership's starting to come together. And I do see the CIO-driven organizations adapting to that, and we're providing tool sets, but there's also adaptation happening within those groups.
So how much
I
do
think
you
the
think?
bigger thing, Marc, is that they're going to start sharing KPIs, sharing goals, sharing governance, sitting around the same table. It's going to be a cooperation. I don't think it's going to be an organizational issue. It's going to be we're at the same table working against a common set of goals, which hasn't always been the case.
How much do you think that the CMO now has to have very technical, data-driven people reporting to them versus creative people that have been, sort of the lifeblood of the past?
Well, I think it's got to be a blend, but I think also what's important about the technical, data-driven people is that they have to be able to derive the insight from what's in the data so that you can say, hey, this, gosh, everyone's engaging with our content at 5 o'clock, between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock p.m. every day. Why is that? And should we use that insight to create more innovative content that we deliver at that time of day?
Yeah.
So it's about connecting the dots and sort of bringing forth the relevant insight from the data that...
So quickly noticing the patterns and then trying to...
Right, so that your creative types, your people who are getting excited about stuff can make decisions that are more relevant for the customer.
You just look at the competition for data scientists right now in the Valley. It is immense.
Right.
So if you're a data scientist, you have any number of offers from any number of companies. And I think that's the answer to the question. Our marketing department staffing up with those people? Absolutely. Is every company in the Valley trying to bring more and more of that talent in? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that article that said that the term data scientist was being pushed to the wayside and new ways to describe yourself because these guys don't want to be cubbyholed. That was kind of an interesting, funny.
Well, good creative now is measured analytically. Most people don't consider good creative if it didn't drive business results.
Right.
So even those aren't really thought of as discrete concepts anymore. Because it's very little, oh, that was beautiful, but it didn't drive results, so it ain't great creative anymore.
So we've always
those aren't discrete.
We've been talking about one-to-one marketing for as long as I've been alive, right? Are we any closer to it now than we were 10 years ago?
I think we are, yeah. And it's not just segmentation and more personalization with, I can now put 62 subject lines in an email or serve ABCD testing instead of AB. It's people are really starting to actually realize I've got the data, I can individualize I can listen.
Right.
Gordon just told me something, I can react to it in real time across the digital channels. Yeah, across the digital channels that I know he's active in with a relevant message based on the data that he left for me, right? So I actually think that marketers have finally stopped considering that a buzzword and are really actually starting to get there in execution. The execution gaps I mentioned are in their way, but everybody's well intended to get there.
So where are the signals coming from? You talk about signals and I don't want to give you a hint, but social, you guys have all made a lot of acquisitions in social. You guys talk about it a lot. How does that figure in to the one-to-one marketing conversation?
The opportunity is just immense because people are sharing more, consumers are sharing more information, more personal information than ever before on the public social networks. And so it's, the opportunity is for the brands and for the vendors to help the brands listen. And I think that's the comment you made earlier about separating the wheat from the chaff, finding the relevant conversations that you want to follow up on. And then not just responding willy-nilly, but really parsing, like, is this an influencer? What are they saying? Are we scoring the sentiment? Are we routing it to the right person who can respond with authority and answer their question or engage with them in a meaningful way? I think all of those tools are now available to everybody, to every brand out there. And so it's how are you taking advantage of them to engage with consumers?
So I'll go down the line with you guys. I'll start with you, Justin. Who do you think's doing it really well? What CMO can keep his job?
You're talking about a brand.
Well, a brand is,
You're doing it really well.
Anybody you want to make a call out to and just use it as an example, as a case study.
Yeah, I think, I'll mention Conde, which is a big customer of ours that I think is deep across a lot of those parameters that you mentioned. They're looking at customer data, they're looking at customer analytics to drive their business forecast, to change business behavior. They have robust...
But they're not seen as being a leading edge brand, perhaps, right?
They're maybe not, well, I think, they're forward-leaning, right? And I think that they are looking ahead, looking at how do I take data management platforms to take segmentation to drive my business forward. So I think of them, I think of Ford as the two that pop to mind immediately as great examples of traditional large brands that are forward-leaning partners of ours right now.
Yeah. What do you think?
One of my favorite stories is a company called Outlook. I don't know, any Outlook customers out there, flash sale customers? A handful?
No, by Nordstrom.
Yeah, they're a subsidiary of Nordstrom. They have so they send flash sales emails to your mobile phone or emails out every morning. 4 million emails every single day. They re-merchandise their store every day. So they run about 200 campaigns a month. And so it's all powered on data from what mobile devices, what time of day, what are people clicking on, all of these constant digital signals in the form of data, Outlook is listening for and then iterating to basically, and using a lot of automation, to re-deliver new campaigns based on all of those digital signals every single day. So
and they use social a lot in this?
Yeah, and they pair that with social listening as well. But I think what's interesting to me is their team is very small. It's like 3 people. And so when you start to think about the scale that such a small company can get using some of these tools, I think that is what's really powerful.
Good. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've got a specific customer. I think the industries that are doing well at this, I think retail is pretty ahead of the game. I think consumer travel is well along the way on the B2C side. If you maybe point to 2 industries, I'd say those 2 are leading in B2C. In B2B, I think it's B2B publishing and media, and then technology companies, go figure, right, are the ones that are kind of eating their own dog food or sipping their own champagne the best. So I'd say, I think those are the 4 industries that we see are probably the most sophisticated adopters of the stuff that we're talking about right now. And then the fast followers are probably, interestingly enough, life sciences is really cruising. Financial services is coming along pretty strong. And consumer packaged goods. So those would say are kind of the emerging 3 after those, the 4 that are kind of there.
Is anybody lagging? Which is lagging?
Yeah, but I'd get in trouble.
Please get in trouble. So how does, there's one thing I'm going to go to mobile, and then I'll get to one last thing before we finish. We have about 5 minutes left. So how does mobile fit? Mobile has just rocketed up. So, even 2 years ago, I think, you take a look at all the stats of, there are more mobile devices on Earth than people. Obviously, if you take a look at all of us probably in this room, we have several mobile devices. Even sitting on a desk, somebody's got a cell phone and then they've got a... So how does that figure into this? The multi-screen aspect of it and then the mobility the consumers have and users have.
I mean, I think for us, the biggest is consistent experiences and providing that tool set to deliver that experience. So when Adobe powers now experiences, apps are included. You need to be able to get that same tool set so that you can scalably build, track, optimize apps in addition to your web-based content, in addition to your mobile web content. It has to be consistent, and it has to be executed from a marketer from a consistent framework. If you're having to custom build these other entities, there's no way to have a consistent experience. So I think from Adobe's standpoint, that's one way that we're looking at mobile. We're building mobile first. Mobile's included across all of our solution areas as a core attribute, as a core standard that we build against. So it's not something that's separate from our business. It's inclusive of the way that we're building product and the way that
Yeah,
we're
there was a
addressing.
couple of years ago when people were saying, let's get all the CRM data online, right? We have all this data of our customers. Nordstrom has it. Let's push it online and let's try to connect these people. Now mobile's coming from another angle in, so it's probably been less. I would say people haven't looked at it the same way at the growth pattern that it's had.
Well, I really think, this is the dashboard to our lives now, right? My financial information, my brokerage is on here, my fitness information is on here, my loved ones are on here, everything is through, Gartner says that we spend 16 hours a day.
And 80% take it to bed. That's another.
Yeah, right? So if you're sleeping 8 hours a day, the other 16 you're touching this thing. It's the last thing you look at night, much to your spouse's chagrin, right? But so I think it's more incumbent than ever to be able to connect to consumers through apps that are on your mobile phone. So either using in-app messaging or other channels, because this also supersedes just mobile channels, right? You're consuming email on this thing, you're tweeting, you're posting to Facebook on this device. So it's both a channel and sort of a meta channel at the same time. And so brands really need to be thoughtful about, is the email I'm delivering look great on mobile? You know, are all the experiences that I'm creating, how do they look great on this thing? Because this is what consumers are using. You know, we had a customer event a couple of days ago. We have a big retailer named Falabella down in South America. They're kind of like Neiman Marcus plus Crate and Barrel. And he said, I love it because every one of my consumers now has a store in their pocket. I just thought that was such a great way to think about the meta strategy.
So Kevin, I'm going to cut you off and not ask you that question because I got one more thing to ask you guys. Sure. So obviously there are a couple of other vendors that are, you know, in this space, HP, SAP, that, you know, aren't represented here. But is there anybody else who could get into this marketing cloud more that you guys worry about? Obviously Google would be one. All right, so I think we're out of time, right?
I'm just trying to think of what would corporate PR say at the end.
Everybody's staring back.
Yeah, it is tens of billions in marketing tech, hundreds of billions in advertising. Right, this is such a massive ocean, and even the people that have done a lot of consolidation and acquisition are already just touching pockets of it. So I think that the need that we're pointing at, and the investment against that need is probably going to fuel a lot of successful companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're a little bit over time, but we could have. Does anybody want to ask a question of this esteemed panel? Should I cold call on anybody? I can't even see if hands are up because. No. One. You win the prize. Go ahead.
Is there a mic?
I think there was, but
You can
shout it. Go ahead. We can hear you. I'll repeat it if they can.
Companies are usually the first or the biggest or different. Which one of the companies do they think they fall into? First, biggest, or different?
So I'll start. A year ago, when you picked up the phone and said, I'm going to get me some marketing, you didn't exactly think of Oracle, right? We have, again, we've bought some phenomenal brands, right? Responses, Eleva, Bluekai, Compendium. I think that, we've been in this game, for a little over a year. So I think it's safe to say that this is a relatively new strategy, but it's also safe that the behavior, I hope, is exhibiting to the industry that the leader thing is going to come along with it, despite the fact that a relatively new entrant to the game.
So nobody else is biting on that one. We have one more back here. You raised your hand?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, what do you guys think is the future of this field in one sentence?
Integration.
In one sentence or one word? He gave you one
Or
word.
just briefly, it doesn't have to be, yeah.
If you have the data, the intelligence, the segmentation, analysis, business rules, orchestration, and you can connect both of those to the actual last mile message delivery in those digital channels, be they mobile, social display, email. If you can put that together, you're going to solve this big problem we're talking about that the CMO has.
Yeah, I think for us it's more about connecting to the customer in entirely new ways and not thinking about campaigns as the end-all be-all, but thinking about one-to-one customer journeys and thinking about the consumer through an entire life cycle.
And I think for Adobe, it's about how do you connect the creative to the experience. I think that's our unique take on the market opportunity, and one that we're looking to execute. And you have to have the data to do that well. You have to have the tool sets to deliver those consumer experiences across the touch points, across channels. But it's that connection between creative and marketing that we're looking to deliver.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I spent over a decade building the marketing animation space with Eloqua. We were acquired by Oracle. I still think I think that the big guys are getting too big, and I think that the integration that is, it's taking a long time to integrate even internally as an organization, as you guys make big acquisitions. I also felt like as I was getting near the end of my time at Eloqua, there was, that marketing automation space was ready for disruption, because marketing automation was built with email as the primary key and not social, which I hate email. I hate my email inbox. I would much rather live in my social world. So do you guys think that there is someone who's going to come in and disrupt even the big boys in the marketing automation space? Are you prepared to be disruptive?
I think it's a great question. I think that you have to continually disrupt yourself every day. I think you have to look at your message to the market. I think you have to fill in your own lead forms to see what happens. I think you constantly have to be evaluating your own business with a beginner's mind so that that disruption doesn't happen. I mean, earlier I was talking about Line and some of these group messaging or mobile messaging apps, private messaging apps. It's like that's where consumers are headed now. So consumers are disrupting this market at the same time, and so we need to really be cognizant of everything that's happening in the market and not just get caught up in, oh, we acquired this, so we've got to integrate it, but really taking an outside-in view of what consumer behavior is.
But I would even say that exact target was a disruptor, right? And you guys gobbled it. So I think that that's, obviously there's always room for disruption, you know, especially with mobile coming in so strongly. You know, people could, you know, as you said, everybody's 80% of their time they're looking at their phone, and there's got to be something that, you know, has a component that people haven't thought of yet. I think we are way, way, way over time, by the way. So it says flashing, need to wrap up.